Hi, this is Patrick Henry from QuestFusion with The Real Deal What Matters. I'm here today with Rory Moore and retired Vice Admiral Walter Davis, who are the co-founders of EvoNexus. EvoNexus is a pro bono technology company incubator in Southern California. In the era of for-profit incubators and accelerators, EvoNexus is definitely unique. Rory was a co-founder of Peregrine Semiconductor, which is now owned by Murata, and also of Silicon Wave, which was acquired by Qualcomm. Rory is also a co-founder of eFire.com, Georgia Now, and Optical River, so a serial entrepreneur. In 2009, Rory founded the pro bono technology incubator called EvoNexus with Vice Admiral Walter Davis, who is also a board member of ComNexus at the time. The entire organization has now been rebranded as EvoNexus, primarily to the success of the incubator. Rory continues to make angel investments in technology companies and is a graduate of the University of Michigan. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Retired Vice Admiral Walter Davis was the Director of Space Systems, Information Warfare Systems, Command and Control Systems, and Modeling and Simulation for the United States Navy, where he directed a $3.5 billion IT budget. Wow, that's impressive. He is a former VP of Business Development at GDE Systems, which is now part of BAE, I believe. He was a Navy fighter pilot, Top Gun type of guy, I guess. He was an aircraft carrier commanding officer and a battle group commander. He serves in numerous Navy engineering positions, including the Navy engineer for the F-14, which is a fighter aircraft, and the Naval Warfare IT architecture. He was also a co-founder of eFire, and he is a graduate of the Ohio State University in Electrical Engineering. Go Buckeyes!
No, wait till November.
So that's really the big question on everyone's mind is how the heck are you guys working together, an Ohio State grad and a Michigan grad?
Well, because every so often one of our teams wins. But we're both pulling
one team that hadn't happened in quite a while.
But with Harbaugh, everything changes now at Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be interesting. We've got two really great coaches at both these schools. I'm going to be following this quite closely in this internal rivalry with you guys. So how did it come about with you guys running ComNexus, you know, the predecessor of EvoNexus, and tell me a little bit about that, you know, like rebuilding the board, and I think that was kind of a troubled time in the history of ComNexus, and you guys kind of came in and turned it around and saved it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I would say saved it, but I think we came in and we provided some value. At the time, we were deciding whether we needed a ComNexus or not. The organization was trying to decide that. So Roy says, well, we don't mind trying to figure that out. And if it's not needed, we won't do it.
Okay.
So we spent about a month going around and talking to all the board members and all our sponsors.
Yeah.
And finding out what their needs were and finding out what their vision was. And at the end, they came back and said, no, we do need a ComNexus.
Okay. So
then our job after that was to make ComNexus a success.
Okay, and the programs you guys run there are, you know, Market Link and the SIGs, and SIG stands for, you know, Special Interest Groups. So basically this is a nonprofit organization that services the technology community in San Diego, providing programs for large and small companies. Is that the best way to characterize it?
For providing value to our sponsors.
Okay.
In fact, you mentioned SIGs. Marco Thompson actually invented SIGs when he was the chairman of the board. And he saw the need for, as I said, SIG stands for Special Interest Group.
Yeah.
So you could take a domain, and he recognized that domain people from all the companies would like to get together.
So this would be like human resources or marketing or various different things like
that. Marketing,
or...
but mostly it was technical.
Verticals.
Vertical technical things, and they would come together, and it was to the advantage of the companies and to the individuals for them to come together to get better in their particular domain.
Okay.
Particular
awesome.
Field of expertise.
And all this was done, you know, for the members on kind of a complimentary basis. You know, this is like an all-you-can-eat buffet and all these programs are available to all members.
All our sponsors.
And that stuff continues on today. So kind of the historical
And it
ComNexus.
does. That's one of the things. We evolve where we think it needs to evolve. It continues to provide value, but the SIGs are probably, they've been a hit. They were hit then, and they're hit today.
Yeah. So what was the genesis of the idea for EvoNexus, the pro bono incubator? You know, obviously you guys started this in 2009, which was the
late 2009,
the global meltdown of the world economy. So I remember Q1 2009 running in Tropic, and I think our stock price dropped down to like 42 cents, and
that's when I bought some stock, by the way.
You were very smart, Rory. Hopefully you bought a lot.
I didn't.
So, tell us a little bit about that. How did you guys come up with this idea? And, kind of it's a crazy idea. So,
Yeah.
but you guys are entrepreneurial, and it's kind of interesting to hear stories like this.
Well, the Admiral and I felt we'd done a pretty good job of turning around ComNexus. We got it financially stable again, and loyal sponsorship group. The programs are doing well.
Yeah.
And we were actually considering moving on.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished, as they say.
Yeah.
When the meltdown occurred.
Yeah.
When companies like yours couldn't be forecast,
Yeah.
give guidance.
Yeah, we couldn't even forecast. I mean, the customers weren't buying anything, so.
We forecast zero. But Tropic Communication wasn't alone. It was companies as large as Qualcomm that were also having difficulties forecasting and meeting expectations.
Yeah.
But what was happening quietly behind the scenes was great engineering talent was being laid off. There were small reductions in force. Yours company was laying off. My company, Peregrine, was laying off quietly. Mm-hmm. And there was great talent hitting the streets.
Yeah.
The other thing that was occurring as Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and the meltdown occurred was the venture capital dried up.
Yeah.
Private investor money dried up. Angel money dried up as the stock market crashed. So we looked around and thought, what this region needed was to re-energize it with an incubator.
Yeah.
And the incubator had to be different than any other incubator. It had to be free for the entrepreneur, taking no equity, but it had to be supported by the community itself.
Okay.
And the community that would support it, we believe, would be our own sponsors at ComNexus.
Okay.
Like you, Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Serving as CEO of Entropic.
Yeah.
So we proposed to stay on and see if we could create an incubator that would really re-energize the entire region, create jobs, launch new technology, and create wealth.
That's awesome. So Rory was kind enough to bring me a tip sheet today with some of the latest statistics around EvoNexus' accomplishments since 2010.
But before you go into that, Patrick,
yes.
What was your comment when we first told you about EvoNexus?
I thought it was a catastrophically bad idea. So
you're on record.
And my reasoning behind that was I saw it as a potential distraction for the good work that both of you were doing at ComNexus, and I can gladly admit and happily admit I was very wrong in that assessment, because this is amazing. This outweighs anything that ComNexus has done historically, which, by the way, is fantastic work. But some of the statistics here,
we prided ourselves as in what we call shooting ahead of the rabbit. Trying to not just stand there, but maybe getting ahead on things. So we can look into, and Roy's got a great vision, and we've been discussing this for some time. So one day we realized it was time.
And it's early 2016 now. 52 companies are currently incubating in 3 locations. $947 million in financing and outcomes, so almost $1 billion in financings and outcomes, which is incredible. 1,240 applications received and 120 companies in the portfolio, so you admit about 10%.
1 in 10, or less than 1 in 10 get in.
Yeah, and then 16 acquisitions to date. This is fantastic. I mean, for the entrepreneurs out there, and I've been, in the entrepreneurial community. I am an entrepreneur. I've run 3 companies, and any venture capital firm would love to have statistics like this. And you're doing it 100% on a pro bono basis, which
That's correct.
Which is incredible. So tell us a little bit about the selection process for companies in the incubator and how the process has evolved over time.
Well, first, selection process.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What we did when we first started this was sit down and say, okay, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And we came out with the idea of what we call the funnel. And we wanted all the companies with the end of the top of the funnel, and then out the bottom of this funnel would be just the best companies.
Right.
So we formed a committee to look at those companies with the domain knowledge of all those companies in it.
Right.
And they would sit down, the companies would put in an application, and then they would sit down and they would grade that application individually.
Yeah.
And then we'd put all our grades together and we'd see how it spread out. And then we would talk about that spread, what discussion of that.
Yeah.
And we may, as a result of that, we might move a company around a little bit. And then those companies that we selected out of that would move down to the next level.
Okay.
And that next level would involve the companies coming in and briefing us face-to-face.
Face-to-face meetings.
Face-to-face meetings. And sometimes we have 80 companies giving us face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
Endurance contests. So, but the committee would all listen to those.
Yeah.
And then we would discuss those. And then the companies out of that face-to-face would move down to the next level.
Okay.
With that great discussion. And
that's the due diligence level.
Yeah.
That's where we dive into the technology, the business model.
Mm-hmm.
We do the due diligence that a venture capital would do.
So basically, you're admitting companies the same way and the same level of rigor as if you were making an angel investment or a venture capital investment.
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, we believe it's even harder because typically a venture capital investor may have 2 or 3 partners that make the decision.
Yeah.
We have the collective wisdom of the committee of EvoNexus, which are all volunteers, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
and have domain expertise in everything we look at.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
And at that due diligence level, it would be the company would not be involved at all. It would be that due diligence team that would convince the rest of the committee that company should be in.
So following due diligence, just much like a venture capital fund,
mm-hmm.
the due diligence group that did the deep dive on the company comes back before the larger committee and describes why they should be voted in.
Okay. And
It
you end up with 1 in 10 and
less than 1 in 10.
And amazing outcomes to date.
Yeah, we've had rounds. We're on round 18 now, selection round 18. We've had rounds where we've admitted nobody.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible. And you're not taking equity in these companies, and
No.
this is 100% pro bono. And
Right.
so tell me a little bit about what you guys see as the key success factors behind EvoNexus. Why is it attractive for an entrepreneur or a startup company to be a part of the incubator?
Well, Admiral Davis and I founded a company a number of years ago called eFire. It was a B2B.
Yeah.
In the fire and first responder safety space. It was, timing was wrong. It was before, as the bubble burst.
Yeah.
So bad timing, right?
Sure.
But at the time that we started it, we believed we had a great business model. We thought we've found an opportunity to own a vertical.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had approached an incubator back then, if there had been one that existed, and a for-profit incubator, and they had said, great, we'll admit you to our incubator, you stay here 4 months, you get free rent, in exchange for 4 months of free rent, some mentoring, we want 10% of your company.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. But that's the model for most of the
for-profit
incubators that are out there.
So one of the things that's made this, I believe, very successful is the serial entrepreneur believes that 10%, 8% of his company in the beginning is a lot of stock.
Yeah.
Would you give that away at Entropic?
No, not for a 4-month, incubation period where, there's very little that can be done in that period of time. Maybe you get some free space, but it's not like you
Right.
Really, it's kind of like when you grow a plant. You know, it's like you rip it up by the roots before it actually starts getting leaves. That's not super helpful.
So at the risk of alienating everybody that runs
Yeah.
a for-profit incubator in this country, but it does work.
Yeah.
It really does work for first-time entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know, you had street cred when you were at Entropic. Your founders had street cred.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a lot of first-time entrepreneurs that don't.
Yeah.
They're recent graduates, with a great new idea that might be the next Facebook.
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yeah.
So those types of deals, I think those accelerators incubators do a great deal of benefit.
Yeah. Okay. And, you know, what are the other, you know, before I get into kind of the relationship with the Irvine company, tell me a little bit about once a company is admitted into the incubator, what are the things that you guys do for them besides free space?
Okay. The free space is what a lot of people like to talk about.
Yeah.
But if you question our entrepreneurs that are there and when they leave, that's minor.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we do when we admit the company, first of all, is congratulate them.
Yeah.
The being the 1 in 10 that made it in, and they're thrilled to be admitted.
Yeah.
Then we sit down and figure out their operational milestones on a monthly basis that lead to their graduation, their exit from the incubator.
Okay.
It's exactly what you should do with your kids in college. You got 4 years, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we sit down and figure out their milestones with them,
Yeah.
what they're going to accomplish in all the important areas of growing their company, and to include raising capital.
Yeah.
And we track them on a monthly basis. They have a mentor that's assigned to them, maybe 2 mentors, that understand their business model, their domain, their technology. And those mentors are hands-on working with them. Although EvoNexus has no board seat, the organization, we have no governance, we have no equity in the startups, all that we have in the way of leverage with them is they're at EvoNexus at our invitation. So if the technology doesn't work, if the plan is blowing up, we can ask them to leave.
Yeah.
And that's really their worst nightmare, is being asked to leave EvoNexus.
Yeah.
So it shows that you can manage a company, help them with adult supervision with no equity.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that some of the companies, and because I've been a witness to kind of this stuff going on, and it's been amazing to me that like very seasoned entrepreneurs, like the likes of Peter Van Rooyen, who's a serial entrepreneur, you know, a similar background to me, or Itzhak Grants, who started Entropic, but he wanted to get into a new area, historically kind of in semiconductors and kind of hardcore technology, but then goes into the genomics area. And one of the multiple key things, you know, it's like, why would Peter go into a deal like this instead of doing it on his own? You know, he can find venture capitalists that will fund him, he's got a track record, but he was doing something a little novel out of the box from what he had done historically. And I think one of the things that you guys did was help him network and relationships, and you know, this is even for a seasoned entrepreneur, like not a first-time entrepreneur. So, and you have multiple examples of people like this in the incubator. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, Peter was quietly a co-founder of EcoATM.
Okay.
With Mark Bowles, and after the first year at EcoATM, he left the firm, he left the venture early on, and he wanted to pursue another idea he had.
Yeah.
But he watched what happened at EcoATM, who was one of our first companies we admitted to the EvoNexus, and how we helped them succeed in building the world's first fully automatic kiosk to recycle your phone.
Oh, and both Mark Bowles and Tom Tully are also serial entrepreneurs.
Right.
You know, these guys are my age, and you know, they basically, maybe a little younger than me, but about my age.
So they got high value even from being in EvoNexus for a number of the reasons we've just discussed.
Yeah.
And Peter saw that occur, and with his new company, one of the areas that worried him the most, you mentioned it earlier, he's a semiconductor guy, going into genomics.
Yeah.
But using semiconductors in genomics.
Right.
So he needed the connections we had in life science and genomics. He needed mentoring. He needed access to capital.
Yeah.
And we provided that to him that he did not have. He was a great entrepreneur. He knew chips.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the credibility in genomics.
Right.
And we provided that for him.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Tell me a little bit about the relationship with the Irvine Company. For those entrepreneurs that are out there, the Irvine Company is one of the largest landowners and landlords in Southern California. I'm in the country now. So really managed by one guy, Don Bren.
Owned by one man.
Yeah. So he's, obviously, this is a big deal. And in order to accomplish what you guys are doing, you have to have some place to do it.
Right.
Like we talked about before the program started, does your office make you successful? No, but you have to have a place to work in order to build a company. So tell us a little bit about that.
I'm going to start off with that, then the Admiral's going to jump in as well. But,
okay.
For EvoNexus to be a transformative incubator, we needed really a transformative major real estate partner.
Yeah.
And that was obvious to us. That would be the Irvine Company. They provide office space to more tech companies than any company in California,
okay.
Both tech and life science.
Okay.
The Irvine Company is a company that at its core believes in innovation. They believe that the small and mid-market companies will drive the economy.
Yeah.
That it's great to point to a Qualcomm or a Broadcom or some of the Fortune 500 companies that do exist in Southern California, but those are anomalies.
Yeah.
The support of the economy is going to be the small and mid-market companies. And they saw EvoNexus as core to that,
okay.
to developing those new companies. Granted, some of the companies that leave EvoNexus may end up as Irvine tenants,
Yeah.
but that's not a requirement. The Irvine Company saw this as an ecosystem build.
Yeah.
Creating successful companies leads to building the entire ecosystem.
But I don't believe they saw that immediately. And I think you guys had to do some selling and convincing to get them to believe in the vision, didn't you?
No, actually, it was something that was not that difficult.
Okay.
Now, to maintain them as a pro bono real estate sponsor, we had to show them results.
Yeah. Which obviously your results are pretty
spectacular. It came down to, we
spectacular.
love your vision because it's our vision too.
Yeah.
Now execute on it.
So it was an experiment. So they got you some space in La Jolla UTC, and tell us a little bit about that, Admiral.
Yes, I wouldn't call it exactly an experiment, but one of the things that's been kind of consistent with Rory and when we had these visions,
Yeah.
that we go to someone, we explain their vision, all of a sudden they explain that vision to us better than we can explain it.
Yeah.
This is a little bit like it was when we went to Irvine Company, and we told them what we're trying to do, and it turned out that they had a vision similar to that. And
Okay.
as Rory said, it wasn't about real estate by itself. It was about building that ecosystem.
Yeah. Building the economy.
And that's what they could explain well, understand that.
Yeah.
And also their belief that the future companies would be these remarkable mid-market companies. So that kind of rang a bell with them. And they saw also our vision of using the fact that we could get pretty powerful by being a free, no strings attached incubator.
Yeah.
We could get pretty powerful mentors. And I think that's the kind of thing they bought into that let them actually contribute so much to this.
And this is a big deal. I mean, that's a huge investment for a for-profit company to make. So I think it's incredibly impressive that you guys were able to pull that off. But obviously, $8 million from these other big guys too, like Qualcomm and Viasat and Entropic, other big sponsor members. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get your historical kind of CommNexus sponsors excited about stepping up and being bigger contributors to the incubator?
Well, going back to your Entropic days, and then also looking about your experience in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Talent goes to where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the reasons that there's so much talent in the Silicon Valley is there's lots of opportunities.
Sure.
Whether it be a big company, publicly traded, all the way to a startup, right?
Yeah.
In San Diego, there's not the diverse of opportunities that you have in the Valley, so it's hard to keep the talent here. the lure of the valley is pretty strong. So
Yeah.
even if you graduate from UCSB in engineering, it's awfully tempting to move to the valley
Yeah.
for the opportunities.
Right.
So companies like Entropic need talent.
Yeah.
And one of the things that EvoNexus provided Entropic and Qualcomm and Viasat is another magnet to keep the talent here.
Yeah.
And in addition, companies like Entropic and Qualcomm are always looking for small companies to acquire.
Mm-hmm.
So technologies that develop quietly by 3 or 4 bright engineers that can be tucked in and rolled into the large
Right.
companies. So,
Well, I'm a huge believer in this whole kind of innovator's dilemma. You know, a large company, it's really difficult to be highly innovative once you have some degree of success because, first off, you don't want some bonehead making some mistake that tanks the entire company. But just on top of that, the processes and systems are set up such that, and the bigger the company is, the more of these processes and systems exist that squash any of that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to be highly innovative in those kind of cultures, but you need innovation, so the best way to do it is do it off balance sheet and make investments in companies that have promise, and then once they get to a stage where they can survive inside of an environment like a Qualcomm or an Intel or one of these big companies, and it happens in healthcare as well. I think a lot of the stuff that you guys have done has been in the life science space, where some of the bigger acquisitions that have occurred have been by life science companies that, everybody wants to be innovative, but it's very difficult to do that if you're a big company.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about some of your successes there.
well, in some ways, yeah, we're a bit like a AAA farm system for baseball.
Yeah.
We've had 16 acquisitions. And these are small teams of individuals that created new technology, that got it to work,
Yeah.
but they were a ways away from mainstream productization.
Okay.
Okay, that takes a lot of capital.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, if they do a trade-off, do we get acquired or do we raise $50 million to take it to market?
Right.
That's the decision made by the investors and the founders.
Yeah.
And the 16 acquisitions that we've had, those founders and investors have realized, well, this is a great outcome for us. We fold into a great company.
Yeah.
And it gets the technology that we killed ourselves for 2 years developing in the mainstream faster.
Yeah.
So some of the outcomes that we've had that we've been really proud of is we had a company called Crisis Medical Systems. And they identified a problem years ago where mistakes are made in the operating room by incorrect dosage.
Okay.
Incorrect dosage. So as an anesthesiologist that is in a critical path in the operation has a mistake made due to incorrect dosage or mistakes that are in the medical records or an allergic reaction to a medication or an anesthetic.
Yeah.
60% of all medical problems in the OR are because of those areas.
Oh, wow.
A lot of it human error.
Yeah.
So how do you correct that? So the team of Crisis came out of QuestFusion, Cardinal Health, GE Health. They saw a problem where they needed an invention in the electronics area to where it would take out that human error.
Okay.
And they developed a device that sits on the IV line, so when the syringe is basically injected into the device, it immediately gives an alert on what's being injected, it tracks what's been pushed, compares it to the medical records, and warns the anesthesiologist before the push.
Okay.
We've got a problem.
Okay.
It's like a black box.
Wow. That's very cool.
It's very hard to do, by the
Yeah.
way, because it has to instantaneously sync up into the electronic medical records of the hospital
Yeah.
of that patient
Yeah.
before that dosage is applied in the OR.
Right. These are real-time, kind of game-time decisions.
Life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catastrophic outcomes if it's wrong.
Yeah. That's
Lawsuits
amazing.
if it's wrong.
And this company was acquired by one of the larger.
By Becton Dickinson,
Okay.
which is the world's largest syringe manufacturer, and who acquired QuestFusion, the largest infusion fund
Okay, cool.
manufacturer. So that's a great outcome. The engineers came to us with a drawing on a piece of paper. Here's the problem. It's going to be really hard,
Yeah.
but we think we can do it. We bet on the team. We bet on the problem. And in 2 years, they'd raised their capital. A year after that, they got FDA 510(k) clearance for the device, and 30 days after the FDA approval, they were acquired by BD.
Yeah, it's fascinating the technologies on the life science side as I've kind of started to learn more about this. You know, because I mean I'm a semiconductor guy, you know, a technology kind of hard technology guy, and I always thought, well, the chip business is so difficult because you know you have to put so much money in before you even know if you have a product, and you know that takes a couple years at least, and then you have to sample it to your customers, and you know that is like a 9 to 12 month process, and then they have to give it to their customers, and there's a 9 to 12 month approval process. So you've got a lot of money in, tens of millions of dollars, maybe even as much as 80 to 100 million dollars before you actually get revenue. But the medical side, I guess I was reading something about the FDA approval process for a new drug in the pharma side, not the medical device side, and it's 14 years on average. I mean, can you imagine? So a lot of these companies, acquisition is definitely the way to go if you hit key milestones, whether it's phase 1 trials or phase 2 or what, all these crazy things. So having a company like that, like yours, an incubator is incredibly valuable in those kinds of circumstances. So, you guys are both tech guys basically, but you've expanded into kind of the life science space. How did that occur? That you started attracting companies that were, not tech type of companies.
One of the things we found here, turns out San Diego is an ideal area because we have the chip industry here.
Yeah.
And we have the health industry here.
Yeah, big biotech
so
community
there are people
here.
Roy mentioned one of those companies, but we now found people that say, oh, there's an overlap there where I can take advantage of the chip technology and do some medical things.
Right.
So one of our companies, for example, Nanomedical. Nanomedical uses a graphene chip to detect Lyme disease.
Wow.
Circus on it.
And they could do that. They did the whole project in less than 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
drop of blood on top of the circus on top of graphene.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's interesting. So, tell us a little bit about, the evolution of EvoNexus in terms of you started with some borrowed space from Cricket Wireless, then you moved to an Irvine company location in La Jolla. You now have a location downtown, in downtown San Diego. You have one up in Orange County. I mean, how far can this thing go? How big can this get?
Well, I'll talk about the San Diego expansion, and the Admiral can talk about the expansion up in Irvine and beyond that.
Yeah.
But the UTC is a logical first location because it's kind of nestled in between UCSD and the Mesa and Sorrento Valley.
Yeah.
So that was a logical location. The Irvine company has many of the buildings there.
Yeah.
And so that became successful pretty quickly with launching some great companies. And then the Irvine company came to us, and I'd like to say this was our idea, but it wasn't, and said, you need to help us re-energize downtown. Because at one time, downtown had all the big law firms.
Downtown San Diego.
Downtown San Diego.
Yeah.
And over time, the tech companies and service providers drifted out of downtown.
Okay.
They moved to Sorrento Valley, Del Mar, La Jolla UTC. The Irvine company owns 8 or 9 of the largest buildings downtown.
Okay.
And they wanted to see something done in downtown that replicated what was happening in South of Market in San Francisco.
Okay.
With software companies. So they asked the Admiral and I to take another mission and create a downtown incubator that was more software centric like San Francisco.
Okay.
And being both former military, me Air Force, he Navy, we accepted the mission and launched a software incubator downtown.
Awesome.
And it has re-energized downtown. We've got multiple companies that we've launched out of downtown. They've stayed downtown.
Yeah.
It's a long-term play. This will take 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But in that length of time, I believe you'll see dozens and dozens of software companies now located downtown, replicating in some small way what's happened south of Market in San Francisco.
That's awesome.
Now, the next mission they asked us to take on was Orange County.
Okay.
And to replicate what we've done down here in Orange County and LA.
Okay.
And our board recognized that, you know, when we look at ourselves as an economy, it includes the whole Southern California.
Right.
And so it turned out now the next place we could go in Southern California and do this was Irvine.
Yeah.
And we had the University of Irvine, UCI, University of California at Irvine, who we had been talking to already
Sure.
many times and looking at some of the technologies that were rolling out of there. And so they gave us a space that's fairly near the university.
Yeah.
We've already had 1, 2, 3. We have 2 graduates actually out of the companies
first year.
that have come.
Wow,
The
that's
technology
awesome.
that came out of UCI came into the incubator, and so now it turns out just in 1 year we raised over $9 million out of that area.
Wow. That's
Okay.
fantastic.
And sure enough, just as we suspected, that effect we wanted to have, it's about the whole Southern California ecosystem. One of our entrepreneurs who was a part of Eco ATM now he's nearer to UCI than he is here. So he spends actually most of his time in UCI mentoring companies there.
Awesome.
So that's worked out really well for us. And so we see a path to expansion. We've been around and visited other areas and other universities, and all of them have asked to come have us nearby because they've got great technologies they'd like to see roll out into our incubator
Okay.
and help them be more of a success.
So already we're being pulled by UCLA, SC, Caltech, Harvey Mudd, these schools in the LA area to have an incubator near them.
Yeah.
Because
And
it's-
I'm sure
again,
like and the pro bono aspect of it has to be extremely attractive for
Absolutely.
universities where, you know, that's it's a big differentiator.
Yeah, I would say if I could give you a rough count, we right now at EvoNexus we probably have 40 ventures that came directly off campus
Wow.
into EvoNexus. 5 already out of UCI in the first year. UCSB leads the pack with probably 15 or 16 ventures.
Yeah, and you just have been down here longer, so that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
So, but it's a diverse group. The element that also is overlooked so much by the Silicon Valley investors is they focus their efforts at the university level on Stanford and Cal. When in fact, Southern California has more engineering schools of excellence than Northern California. Although
Interesting.
they sort of believe that intelligent life ends south of San Jose.
Well, I did a little bit of research around this and kind of my angel investing, venture investing, that the center of gravity is definitely up in Silicon Valley. If you look at geographies for private company investing, if you could combine San Francisco and San Jose, well, 3 of the top 10 are Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose. Then if you just take San Jose and San Francisco together, the amount of money that they invest in companies is larger than the next 8 combined. It's just crazy. But a lot of those companies do make venture investments in Southern California. So, you know, you talk a little bit about that, like the top 10, but they're not making seed investments and Series A investments. I think they're making later stage investments.
That's correct. The top 10 venture capital funds that invest in Southern California are from Northern California.
Yeah.
They're funds based in Northern California, but they're investing in later stage companies.
Okay.
This would mean B and C rounds.
Yeah.
So what's developed is a gap, a funding gap for the seed and the A rounds.
Yeah.
And that's getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
That's an area where we spend a lot of our time trying to solve that funding gap, and then and the close to $1 billion that we've raised goes a long ways to doing that, because the $1 billion that you see there is early and A round money.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is really, the gap is partially being filled by, you know, angel investors, super angels, you know, syndicate of angel investors, you know, things like Angels List and stuff like that. But there definitely is, you know, a gap that still exists, and, you know, it's going to be interesting how that evolves over time. So let's shift gears a little bit. So Rory, tell me a little bit about, you know, your history of being a serial entrepreneur and angel investor, and how does that help you in running EvoNexus?
It was essential. You know, you cannot operate an incubator unless you walked in their shoes of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
And you have to have had that background, and you have to have failures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had 10 startups and 6 of them failed.
Yeah. Learning opportunities, as we like to call them.
Learning opportunities. And I've had ventures in, although I'm a native of California, I spent many of my years in Arizona and Phoenix.
Yeah.
Had some successful ventures over there. And then in 1990, co-founded a company in San Diego called Peregrine Semiconductor.
Yeah.
A chip company like yours.
Yeah.
And my other 2 co-founders were from San Diego, and we took a vote on where the company would be. Well, they outvoted me.
Yeah.
So it was San Diego. So I moved from Phoenix to San Diego, and we founded Peregrine. But that experience at Peregrine gave me some great insight as to what high-tech entrepreneurs would face.
Yeah.
Peregrine had so many near-death experiences, I can't describe them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, did you have some in Entropic?
No question.
No question.
You can't run a company without having times of adversity, as we call them.
Yeah, it's near-death experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so every great company has those occur.
Yeah.
The ones that, there'll be a few that luck out that don't, but most do.
Yeah.
And that really builds character. It creates a work ethic and determination. And that's what I got out of Peregrine. That's what I got out of Silicon Wave.
Yeah.
Was that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so Admiral got that as well.
Yeah.
With his experience both in the Navy, but also following his departure from the Navy at E-Fire, for example.
Yeah.
So we both had that entrepreneur experience. We understood what it would take to sacrifice. And when we came up with the concept of EvoNexus, we knew we were the right 2 founders to kick this thing off.
Okay. Well, I mean, you have a great set of experiences too, Admiral Davis. You're a career Navy guy, and an admiral. I mean, the leadership skills, that just come from being any kind of officer in any of the branches of the military, but then achieving the height of leadership
But
in,
he was a
in an organization like
high
that.
risk taker admiral.
Yeah.
He wasn't sitting behind a desk. He flew test pilot, F-14s, F-4s.
Yeah.
So he was that admiral that was on the fringe of.
So you have, both you guys obviously are risk takers, and I know you take risks in your personal lives too, even more than I do. But tell me a little bit about that, Admiral. In terms of running large organizations, the leadership experience, being a fighter pilot. All the things that kind of make you up as a person. How is that helpful to entrepreneurs, and providing guidance and those kinds of things?
Sure. I think one of the biggest parallels, people always interested in my experience on the aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Where you've got 5,000 men down there and numerous squadrons.
Yeah.
And in order for me to be successful as a commanding officer of that aircraft carrier, all those guys had to be successful. They had to be doing their jobs right, otherwise I wouldn't be a success.
Yeah.
And if you look at really the incubator, it's almost the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, all those incubator companies and the people in them have to be a success in
Yeah.
order for Rory and I to be a success.
Yeah.
So we there to try to ensure their success. They always ask me, what makes your day, Admiral? I said, well, you make my day, because if you're doing well, I'm doing well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've witnessed with you guys, and especially you, Admiral Davis, is you do a lot of what I would call management by walking around and, visiting the companies, and, you're up in Orange County, you're down in San Diego, you're in La Jolla, and you're always talking to the entrepreneurs about what's going on and picking their brains. And then you kind of store that information and bring somebody like me in, or somebody that does what I do, former entrepreneur, and say, hey, why don't you guys talk to each other, and maybe you can help them. So it's not just a formal mentorship program in EvoNexus. There's this informal thing that goes on. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can, but one of the neat things about Rory, he has his mind works that way.
Yeah.
And he will see a company, and all of a sudden he's thinking about some guy he met 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's bringing him back onto the scene for this because this is a perfect person to help this company.
Awesome.
And we see that just over and over again. And that kind of builds too. Other people see that, and then I bring us people that said, okay, we know, John Jones over here who worked in this domain had a similar problem. He might be a good mentor for this company.
That's awesome.
And we find that having that, there's several kinds of mentors that you have, but having that mentor who can be tough on you, I'd say, Marco Thompson likes to call it a KAM mentor. You can figure out what that A is for, KAM mentor. And having that kind of mentor sometimes is a key to that organization, especially if it's a senior guy who thinks he already knows everything.
Right.
But he has someone who comes in also that gives him that perspective that allows him to be a success because he's also had a great experience.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, dealing with young entrepreneurs sometimes. Everybody says they want coaching, but they don't think about, Bobby Knight or Coach K or somebody that's like in their face saying, yeah. So actually sometimes you need that, I've needed it in my career, and I've definitely had bosses that, especially up in Silicon Valley, that are very tough, very difficult people to work for. But I've learned and grown from those experiences, and it's great that you guys are able to provide the love, but also provide the tough love, at times when companies need it. So I know both of you guys are airplane pilots. I don't know if you've flown more combat missions than anybody else in the U.S. Navy, but I know it's up there. Rory, you're like
close to more than everybody else, I can tell you that.
Actually, the Admiral flew his entire 37 years in the Navy.
Wow.
Which is really rare.
Yeah, that's very rare. And then you're an incredibly accomplished, world-class stunt pilot. So tell us a little bit about, your hobbies, and, you guys are obviously risk takers, adrenaline junkies, as they like to say. How do your hobbies fit in with your life today? And, how do you kind of keep some kind of life balance around what you guys do?
Well, I think the hobbies I have embody, my attitude about starting a company.
Yeah. Because
it is risk, and if you're not willing to take the risk, then keep your day job at IBM or wherever.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, the risky things that I do, like aerobatic competition, flying, to me is a way of escaping, getting away from the startup world, getting away from the office, because believe it or not, when I'm flying my airplane, I am totally in a zone.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of nothing else. You've blocked out everything. You're not worried about your emails, your phone calls, your meetings, because the flying that I do demands absolute, total focus.
Right.
And that's relaxing.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain until you get to that zone.
Yeah.
But you talk to a professional athlete, a runner, they get into a zone, and that is their relaxation.
Yeah.
It's also exercise, but that provides me, and I have a goal to achieve. And often the goal I achieve when I fly, I only know what I've done.
Yeah.
There's not been an audience of 200,000 air show people in the audience clapping or whatever. I'm up there practicing, doing a sequence.
Yeah.
I know when I've done it right.
Yeah.
And it's personal.
Yeah.
So in technology in a startup, as a CEO, you know when you've made the right decisions.
Yeah.
And you may be the only one on your management team that knows you made the right decision.
Yeah.
You have not, the board may not understand.
Yeah.
Your management team, because you see all the factors.
Right.
There's a terrific book that's been written recently by Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm.
Yeah.
Called Hard Things Are Hard, something like that.
Yeah.
And it talks about risk, the loneliness of being the CEO, of making the decision when you may be the only one that believe in it. And whether you're flying an airplane like the Admiral and got a combat mission, or whether you're flying an aerobatic sequence in competition, or you're the CEO, the decision comes down to you.
Yeah. And how about you, Admiral, in terms of like life balance, and you're a family man, and you also have some fun hobbies, I'm sure. Of course, I don't think you still fly F-14s and F-18s.
He flies me.
No,
we fly together in my airplane.
Oh, that's awesome.
Airplane.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
He's still a great stick, by the way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Now, you know, flying fighter aircraft is all about getting yourself in the right position at the right time, so when you fire your missile or your gun, it's going to hit the enemy.
Yeah.
And you could say a lot, there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
You know, being an entrepreneur is about timing, also managing your we call it in Navy fighter pilots would call it about managing your airspeed and your energy and the altitude, so at the right place, right time. Well, if you're going to be a successful company, it's the same thing. You produce a product, well, you know this really well, because you had to produce a product when that product was needed in order for it to be successful. If you'd have been too early, you wouldn't have hit the, you wouldn't have got a hit.
Yeah.
If you'd been too late, you wouldn't get a hit. So you've got to be there just at the right time, produce that, make your shot, and it hits.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, and it's the same thing.
But a little less dangerous, and you're
typically. No one dies.
Yeah, you don't want to run out of airspeed at the wrong time.
In his former life, someone had to die.
So, you know, for the entrepreneurial audience out there, is there anything that you guys want to emphasize that we didn't touch upon, you know, that are kind of key pearls of wisdom from your experience, or, you know, things that you look for in entrepreneurs, or, you know, anything along those lines?
Yeah, I'm going to quote my co-founder of Peregrine Semiconductor, Dr. Ron Reedy.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they want to be an entrepreneur, but he says it's like, he was also a Naval Academy guy, and you know, he did parachute jumping, all that stuff. He says it's like getting up in an airplane and looking out the door. Do you really want to jump?
Yeah.
And you have to, and you have to fully commit. And it's not for everybody. You have to have the support. Not only you have to believe in it, but your family has to believe in it.
Yeah.
Your friends, your girlfriends, everybody has to believe in you.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You have to have that support.
Yeah.
And complete conviction. And if you have it, then your co-founders will have it. Then your team will have it. If they see any kind of hesitation from the leadership, it destroys the company.
It's really interesting as you progress through your career, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Admiral Davis. You know, people are looking at you and looking to you, even though you don't realize it. And you know, it's your body language, it's your attitude, it's your trajectory, it's your passion, because they're looking to you, even though you may not even realize it. And all that stuff is really important. And if you don't have that 100% commitment, everybody's going to see it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a compliment. One of the co-founders of Entropic Communications, Itzhak Karatz, you came on Entropic when there were 40 employees, something like that, and not a founder of the company, but early on, Itzhak, as a founder of the company, paid you an amazing compliment. He said, "I started the company, but Patrick built the company."
That was very nice of him. He's a great guy, and he was one of the best people I've ever worked with in terms of a true partnership. And he stuck it out. I mean, he stuck it out through the IPO, and you know, through all the different ups and downs we had at the company. And he's not only a brilliant guy, he's a real gentleman and somebody that knows where they're good and knows where they have limitations and brings in other people to help support them on those areas. I mean, a lot of times, especially with founders and some entrepreneurs, there's this what I call transference of credentials. So they might be brilliant in this area, and therefore they think they're brilliant in all areas. And I think that becomes a real potential limitation for entrepreneurs. If they can figure out where they're brilliant and where, you know, they need help to kind of build a supporting cast, because it does take a team if you're going to build a real company. That can be the difference between success and failure. And fortunately for me, I was with the guy that saw that, and he was still brilliant in the areas that he was brilliant, and just a real great partner and a wonderful guy.
What has made the successful leaders that you've had in Navy?
Well, one of my favorite sayings is, if you're in charge and you're not enjoying yourself, then nobody else is.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, let's see it like your leadership. You know, that CEO sets the example.
Yeah.
And so if he's working hard at it and enjoying it, his team will be on board with you. And he says, you know, later on they're going to call you the builder.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. This has been really fun, you guys. I'm really glad you could take the time to do this.
Thanks for doing this.
I think that EvoNexus is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in my career, and I think we're just at the very beginning. So it's an exciting time for all of us, and really appreciate all the things that you guys are doing to help build the Southern California economy, kind of one brick, one step at a time.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for building out Entropic, creating at least 1,000 jobs in San Diego, high-paid jobs, and value for the community and the technology that Entropic created.
Thanks, Rory. This is Patrick Henry with QuestFusion with the Real Deal What Matters.